Hey guys, what's up? This is Jacqueline from the Writers Rampage, and today I'm here with Aimee Shaye. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we are going to play 20 questions, and obviously there'll probably be some more questions along the way at some point. So my first question
hmm
is, how often do you write?
Every day since this pandemic, there's not a moment where I don't. Um, it's a little bit more flexible because I'm a teacher. So as soon as I get in, have my dinner, I kind of just sit down and I write. But now because of the pandemic, I find myself in the middle of a meeting and I'm writing, which is probably not the best thing, but the
Hey,
books got to get done, right?
right, as I was going to say, you got to get it done somehow. How else is it going to get it done?
Exactly. So I can't stop it. When the juices are flowing, they're flowing.
That's how I felt today. I think I wrote maybe 5,000 words today. But I actually finished the book, so it was okay.
Oh my God, it's so exciting. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Um, so do you often write in the genre that you read in?
I do. I also read romance, but I can't write it to save my life. A couple years ago, I released an erotica that went over well. But like my family and stuff would not read it because it wasn't clean. And I hated not being able to share it with anyone. So I ended up like taking it down earlier this year. The other two romances that I wrote were largely based on my life and a an emotionally abusive relationship that I had gone through. But it's like in the past now. It's like that Justin Bieber song "Love Yourself." Like I didn't
Yeah,
want to write a song because I didn't want anyone thinking I still cared.
that's my jam.
Right?
But,
So I didn't want to leave it up because I don't want anybody knowing I still care about it.
but
So
I'm
I
not the only
figured it.
believer. Beaver, however you say it. How do you say it?
Oh,
I don't even
we're
know.
believers.
Yes, believers. Yes. I knew it was something like that. I'm like, it didn't sound right coming out of my mouth, but I'm like, wait, I think that's what it is.
Definitely believers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
But I have since taken them down. It's time for that ship to sail. I'm married for 2 years and it's time to close that chapter. So, but
yeah.
now I just stick to fantasy. It's what I love to read. It's what I write best. We have 14 reviews on The Broken Daughter, which is amazing. So
Yeah, that's
I
good.
know that I've hit it.
What is your research process like for your novels?
um, it depends on like what I need, I guess. So for The Broken Daughter, there wasn't any. Um, just because it was like a world that I kind of made up on my own based on like Indian culture and Turkish culture. So it was just stuff that I basically knew or saw in movies. The Dead Daughter did require some research. Um, the main character speaks mostly with her hand because she's been like so traumatized. She wasn't allowed to speak because she was a prisoner in her own castle. And since the book has been out for a couple months now, I figure spoiler. Sorry, guys. But she was a prisoner of her own castle and speaks with her hands. And I wanted to make sure I represented the sign language in a way that was all inclusive. So I did talk to a couple of people who are fluent in ASL and BSL, just to make sure that I was conveying it the right way and not like, hurting that community in any way.
So here's my question because I have read the book, so I do know the book, and I'm excited for number two. So this book is really based in its own world, and you can't really compare it to any type of other world out there because you really can't. Like I've tried to, and then I'm like, no, that's not. It's just in its own category, which is good, which is why I
Right.
think it's doing so well. But with the advisor, I can't remember his name.
Sir Parzival?
Yeah, I have a hard time pronouncing it, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to remember because he's like a kind of like a bad guy, but not really. Like, is that? like I said, I have to go back and reread it because there were just
Hmm.
some things where I was like, well, I don't know if that's really like. So I'm just trying to figure out if he was supposed to be like a good guy and a bad guy, or just a flat out bad guy, but not really the main villain.
So he is the bad guy helping the main villain.
Okay, that
So he kind of presents this false facade of I'm your royal advisor, I've got like your best interests at heart, and that is far from the truth. So he's the one kind of pulling the strings.
okay. That's what I kind of thought. I wasn't sure though. That's why I decided to ask because I was like, wait. So that's why I said I have to go back and reread it because there are
Hmm.
some things that were like not completely clear to me, and I don't know if it was just because I was reading at like 3 a.m. and
Right.
didn't stop
It
reading.
is definitely something you'll miss. I was actually told this by Keith Clark, who I did um, the the blind read with. So it's this really cool podcast where we never meet the author. We're kind of just exchange their books through email. And then we read the books, and the only time we met was on the podcast, the night of the podcast.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, and said the same thing. He was like, I kind of knew, but I kind of didn't. So he was like, but I'm because like he thought of like the name Sir Parsival, who happens to be like one of Arthur's knights or something like that. I forget the exact
Oh,
history he gave behind the name, but he's always like a good guy. So he was like, when you made him a bad guy, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was like, I knew I got the name from somewhere. I just didn't know from where. So he put that light bulb back in my head.
Yeah, because I knew it sounded familiar. I just didn't know where from. Because you know how like
Hmm.
you read something for a long time and then you don't get back to it, and then you're like, oh, it comes up in another book, but then you're like, I don't know where I got it from. That's
Yes.
yeah.
That was kind of like with me when he was like King Arthur. And I was like, oh my God. And I love the Arthur story. So I don't know why it didn't click.
I like the
Be-
retelling. If you like the Arthur stories, you should read I, Guinevere by C.K. Brooke.
okay. I
And
definitely will.
it's basically King Arthur, but with Guinevere taking over the story.
Oh,
It's
nice. I
really
love it.
good. I actually own her books. She's actually one of my friends, and
Okay.
it's a retelling of King Arthur.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, you would like it.
All right. Thank you for that read. I'm also going to go friend her
Yeah,
so
you
that I
should.
can
Yeah,
follow her.
just tell her that I recommended you.
Awesome. All right. I definitely will.